Goalkeeping is my first love, and it's an art and it's special to me, but I'm happy to leave that there from a coaching perspective and go and explore and develop in this area. And that's the path I took. Throughout my playing career, I was really fortunate that I wasn't surrounded by drab coaching or coaches who weren't working in the detail. Likes of Eddie Howe, when I think back to the work he would do on the training ground, Steve McLaren, Jose, Kieran, Michael Carrick, the list is long in terms of coaches that were pushing the envelope, were really wanting to improve players, were really obsessed with the detail of how to go about doing that. That's the stuff that was really getting me excited. Right now, having coaches and managers that understand how much impact they can have on players as well, with their words, their language, their attitude, how much contact they have, I think having that is really key to having good, confident, positive group and good dynamic within a team.
Hello coaches, welcome back to another Modern Soccer Coach interview. This week, part 2 of my trip to England. Lee Grant, Ipswich Town assistant coach at the time of the interview and newly appointed Huddersfield Town head coach. I was so excited to take the trip to Ipswich Town to talk to Lee for 2 reasons. First of all, Lee's journey is so fascinating. Former goalkeeper, professional, played at the highest level, Manchester United, and then when he moved on to coaching, goalkeepers typically do go to goalkeeper coach and do that pathway. Lee went to a forwards coach role with Kieran McKenna at Ipswich Town in an assistant coach capacity, and then has moved to a head coach. So a completely different pathway than most, and I wanted to get his thoughts on what the thinking was behind that. And then second of all, one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to chat to Lee was this detail around Premier League forward coaching. What does he see? How does individual development work at the highest level? Senior professionals, how do you incorporate data? How do you incorporate psychology? How do you incorporate sports science? Lee talks about all of this. Unbelievable. Love this chat, and I know you will too. Before we start, please make sure you like, please make sure you subscribe, and please check out our new platform, Modern Soccer Coach Insider. Plenty of new content on there as well. Okay, Lee Grant, here we go. Enjoy. Lee, thanks so much for your hospitality and for joining me on the Modern Soccer Coach podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Obviously heard a lot about Ipswich and the work that's been done here over the few years, so we'll get to that. But I want to start coaching journeys, obviously from your background as a player. Which environment when you were growing up kind of impacted you the most as a player?
I feel really fortunate actually that I came through in some really top environments in terms of how I feel like I was able to be impacted by them. So the coaches that I was surrounded by from a young age and the players that I was surrounded by from a young age had a really lasting effect on my principles and my morals really as a professional coming through. And I think that initial phase at Derby County under Jim Smith, and it was Eric Steele who was the first team goalkeeper coach at the time. First team goalkeeper being Mark Poom, and they were for me like really excellent role models of, okay, this is an excellent first team goalkeeper who is well liked, has extremely high standards, an extreme professional, so right at the far end of the spectrum of super dedicated and disciplined and fit, and habits just off the scale. So right at that far end of the spectrum of, wow, that's a real stretch to, if I can ever get to that level of discipline. And then a goalkeeper coach who was really warm, really committed to wanting me to be a better person, better player, and I think really skilled at helping to push me along to where I needed to get to. So really lucky actually that I came through as a young player in that environment. And then, of course, along the journey, there's lots of other stops as well. So Sheffield Wednesday with Billy Mercer and Brian Law was a really good time for me in my own career. And then latterly with a at Stoke, had a really good spell, and an excellent goalkeeper coach there in Andy Quay, who had a huge impact on my career. And then obviously I had a spell at Manchester United, which has been great. So I felt really fortunate all the way through. So it'd be hard to pick one out, but of course it's those early years that help form you. And certainly Eric Steele, for me, who anybody in the goalkeeping world would know as one of the top educators, and actually one of the leading lights of, specialised goalkeeper coaching. He was really a trailblazer in that. So, yeah, very fortunate, I think, from those early years.
Goalkeeping's got this unique blend of ultra technical detail, but then there's this psychological component, which is off the charts. I would imagine as you get to a club like Manchester United, where you would need, it's not even a thick skin, because even for the outfield players, people talk about the size of the jersey at United. How do you deal with that there when you go to that level?
I'm having to actually put my goalkeeper head back on now. I've not had that on for a few years, so I'm trying to remember what it's like to be a goalkeeper. But no, you're right. Regardless of whether you're a goalkeeper or an outfield player, the shirt at Manchester United does have a special significance. And I think I was probably lucky that I was at the right age and stage when I got to Manchester United, and probably also the context of me and my position at the football club made that easier as well. I'm not in the limelight every week. I'm in the shadows somewhat. I'm the number 2 goalkeeper on the bench, and I'm playing, once in a blue moon. Obviously, I enjoyed each and every minute I got to wear that shirt, but it wasn't every week, So those guys that were in the firing line every week, it really does carry. It's a huge weight. There's no two ways about it. Being inside that bubble, you quickly realise that Manchester United is the biggest club in England, and it's going to take a long time for that to change, a long time. And you feel it in every moment, every time you step off a bus or a plane, or you arrive at an opposition stadium, or you turn on Sky Sports News, you feel it, it's there, and you can't escape it. More so now with social media and everything else, and the other noise that surrounds the game. So it's there, it's present, and it is heavy, and it is real. It's not a fallacy. It's true, and it is something that has to be contended with if you are fortunate enough to be in one of those shirts. And it is something that players need to give consideration to, without doubt. As I say, for me, I feel like my personal journey, I was ready for that, and I'd probably done quite a lot of work behind the scenes to be ready for that. A lot of that work involved Martin Perry, who was my confidence coach, sports psychologist, who by the time I arrived at Man United, I'd already had a decade of working with Martin and was completely prepared and ready, as daft as it sounds, because 2 and a bit years previous, I was out of favour at Derby County. So to say that you could make that jump from there to Manchester United and be playing for Man United, which I was, near enough 2 years later, and funnily enough, my debut was against Derby County for Man United. The irony in that is mental, but to say I was ready and felt ready is a bizarre statement, but actually I did feel like I was in the right place, and all of that work that I'd done previously for 10 years with Martin, of understanding myself most importantly, and understanding what makes me tick and how I can be okay in this moment and this moment and this context or that context, I felt like I was ready for that. But perhaps if that opportunity had come to me 10 years previously, I'm not so sure I would have been, because I'm not so sure all of that, that foundational work that I'd done with Martin over the years, whether I'd have been ready for that or not. So to go back to your question, which is, the psychology of that and the importance of being ready for that mental, it's huge. And I'm certain that the majority of players at Man United are working on that, and certainly clubs of Manchester United size. I know when I was there, there's always that support. There's always that that angle from a club standpoint in terms of sports psychology, in terms of coaches who understand what's needed. That's all there for you. It's not something that's ignored or put to one side, or players are left to their own devices. Most players these days are taking that into consideration and are working on it. It's not easy for everybody, but lots of players have that mindset now, which I think is only a positive thing.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I wanted to get on psychology, and one of my questions was that I feel in the US, which is almost the home of sports psychology to a degree, a lot of awareness over the last 5-10 years, but like application for what you just said, very minimal around the landscape of impact. You know, it's still very much bring in a motivational speaker and then let everyone work it out. What you're saying there is, one, the clubs are providing more support, and two, like if I'm right in hearing, you've gone out and seek that support externally from the club.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm alone in that. So my story isn't, I don't say that to like, well, this is weird or wonderful. This is, I would say now the landscape has changed from when, 20 odd something years ago when I was coming into the game as a professional, to say, I'm spending an hour with a sports psychologist post-training. That would have been a difficult conversation to bring up with anybody in the changing room. I don't think it's as difficult a conversation now. Probably still some work to be done on that in terms of the openness. But for instance, here at Ipswich, we have that facility available to players. But it has to be, of course, it's a two-way thing. It's not something that you slam in front of players or you demand from players. It's always that, open two-way thing. And I think that's really important. But one of the other important aspects of that is coaches being really mindful of the impact of not just, what's impacting players technically or tactically or physically. It's like what's happening upstairs and what considerations do we need to give to what's happening with this player or this individual from a mental aspect. And I think that's really important. And I think a lot of work's been done in that area. A lot of coaching courses now really diving into that quite deeply. And I think that's important because it's such a huge part of the game, and it's so key to making gains. It's so key to being consistent, to having good habits. So yeah, it's important that clubs are recognising that, and players are too.
Hello coaches, we'll take a quick break here. Thank you so much for all your support as always with Modern Soccer Coach. If you're enjoying this interview, please make sure you like it. Please make sure you subscribe. Please make sure you share it. And please consider joining us for our new launched Modern Soccer Coach Insider. It's a new platform. We've got a ton of requests to go a little bit deeper into the content that we do with the breakdowns of the podcast. So we have built out Modern Soccer Coach Insider. 3 massive advantages to join. Number one, you get access, on-demand access to every single webinar we've done at Modern Soccer Coach. And as you know, there are quite a few of them over the years. You get access on demand. They're easy to find. It's all laid out really, really well and professional. Second of all, we will continue to build out content. Here are some of the upcoming events for the next 4 to 6 weeks at Modern Soccer Coach. If you're a member of the Insider, you get all of these for free, and you get to participate in the members only. Members only are Insider member calls. We'll look at Luis Enrique with the group of Modern Soccer Coach Insider. We'll put together an attack and transition webinar for everyone. Again, free for everyone who's members of the Insider. We'll look at attacking principles and how to create those. And then we have a new Modern Soccer Coach set piece workshop, which will be out in July. And then something a little bit different we're putting together with our members, how to successfully use throw-ins with your game model. All free for insiders. New sessions, new coaching resources that you will get access to on the platform. And then third of all, the most important thing for me is the ability for us to connect and collaborate with the coaching community that we have engaged over the years. So you'll have an opportunity to jump on calls with myself. I'll put the link below. Modern Soccer Coach Insider. Massive, massive appreciation for your support to help us build it. Now we need one more favor, and that is to jump on and join in the conversations over there. We won't stop producing Modern Soccer Coach content, of course, but there's only so far you can go on YouTube. There's only so far you can go on a post on LinkedIn, and we want to go a little bit further with you guys. So please join us, Modern Soccer Coach Insider. Link is in the comments. Link is in the description. Join us today. It's fascinating. The piece I want to ask you, just from an overall, again, the football component of it, because if you do bring in, and you might disagree with this, I feel if you bring in a general psychologist without an appreciation of the variables and the context of a football club and a football life, they can sometimes spend more of their time trying to work that out than trying to help the player. Yeah. How do you, what type of a framework do you introduce with take, there's not an Ipswich question, but just an overall question. What would you advise coaches to look at if they're saying, right, we've got to bring someone in, but we've got to make sure they're good? What would they ask for?
It's a good question. It's always the why, I think. Why do we need somebody, and what do we need somebody for? And is this a role that our manager, our coaches, do we have a coach that is particularly skilled in this area? Is there somebody that's filling this role already, or is there a piece missing here that we need to really feel and identify? And that's always the question for each and every club, isn't it? And we're really fortunate here. We've got a manager that's pretty skilled in that world and understands the pressures and everything that's impacting the players, and puts a lot of thought and time and detail into that psychological aspect, that mental approach from players and what's going to be needed, and also giving players a framework to work in, because a lot of the time it's really important to give the players a real clear understanding of, this is the picture, this is the landscape, what we're working in, and this is how we're going to move forward, or this is how we're going to move into this direction. And if you've got staff or a manager that's skilled in doing that, wonderful. Oftentimes, and I've been at football clubs in the past where it does need somebody to pull everything together, and that's where we've had external people come in. And as long as you've got somebody who understands the culture of the group, the feel of and the dynamic and where the club's going and where the team's heading, and is obviously aligned with the coach and the philosophy of the manager and et cetera, then it can certainly work having somebody come in from an external standpoint. And I've seen that work. I've also seen it fail. When you bring people in who don't necessarily understand the landscape so well, that can be difficult, and people coming in cold and being dropped in front of a group of 25 individuals, post a training session, for example, at the wrong time, can often, go the wrong way. But done in the right way and set up the right way can absolutely have a positive impact on a group. So I often see external people come in, as long as they are surrounded by the group and around the group and immersed in the group enough, it can work, absolutely. I've seen that, and I've been part of groups that have had, external members, so not a defined member of the coaching staff, come in and be the sports psychologist who perhaps isn't here 7 days a week, who's maybe only here 2 or 3 days of the week, but is available and does understand the group. I've seen that work as well. And it's a skill. It's a skill for managers to understand what's needed and what's not, what type of individual. It's not an easy call. As I say, I do think right now, having coaches and managers that understand how much impact they can have on players as well, with their words, their language, their attitude, how much contact they have. I think having that is really key. Is really key to having good, confident, positive group and good dynamic within a team.
You mentioned there about putting the goalkeeper hat back on. It can be an insular world where some environments you're literally cocooned on another island as the player trains. But you've obviously have an open mind to development and your own pathway as a coach. When did that start for you, where you took an interest, a genuine interest in other? Was that something young where you were just looking at everything, or was that something where you said at some stage, I'm going to zoom in here a bit, zoom out?
Yeah, I think quite early, Gary, to be honest. I went down that normal route, let's call it, of, okay, I want to start to get my coaching badges. I want to have an eye on what I'm going to be doing post-playing, because I'm not going to play forever. So by the time I got into my late 20s, I was already thinking about what that would look like. And that looked like, right, first things first, let's go and get my goalkeeper B licence. I think that was the first thing I did. Before I did that, I had to do my outfield B licence. So I did my outfield B licence and I did my goalkeeper B licence. And I did them in quick succession. And straight away from that point, I was like, oh, okay, I understand where I'm going with this already. And it wasn't a conscious decision of, I want to go and manage and be a manager one day, which I've probably arrived at now, but it was a decision of, this is for me and that probably isn't. And this was, I think I want to head this way with becoming an outfield coach, and goalkeeping is my first love, and it's an art and it's special to me, but I'm happy to leave that there. And of course I'm still playing at this time, but I'm happy to leave that there from a coaching perspective and go and explore and develop in this area. And that's the path I took. So from early 30s, it was, from that point it was A licence and pro licence and LMA diploma and anything else I could get my hands on, really, by the time I finished playing. So that leaves me in this position I am now. So yeah, exciting and perhaps different to what maybe people would have expected. But for anybody that's been around me and my journey over the last 10 years, it's not a surprise, or it's not anything that they wouldn't have expected.
Because some players, when they get to that stage of 28, early 30s, they're almost at the stage where they would wonder why a guy does that head coaching job. Do you know what I mean? There's part of that there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You see the tortures that managers go through at times, and I've certainly played my part in that across a 20-year playing career of giving managers tortures. That's mostly my own managers, by the way, not opposition managers. So yeah, you're right. But I just think there was a really clear point, probably early 30s, and I was fortunate enough to play into 39, so I still had nearly 10 years to go. But there was a real clear point of, I really love this game, actually. And I definitely went through sort of peaks and troughs of, I'm not sure with this game and this is really frustrating. But what I came to realise by the time I was old enough and dropped the ego was, actually, I love the game through and through. And those low moments or those valleys are only ever if I've played poorly, or if I'm disappointed in myself, or I think the world's against me, which it never is. You arrive at the point by the time you're old enough and ugly enough to 30 to go, I love the game. I can't wait to keep doing this post-playing as well. How am I going to do that? What does that look like? How can I give back, and how can I help others have a really exciting journey? And because once you do start to get towards 38, 39, you're definitely looking back, as I was, going, that was fantastic. I'd love to do that all over again. Loved every minute. Hope somebody else gets to have as much fun as I've just had from 19 to 39, playing everywhere I've played and having all those experiences. So part of the thinking there at 38, 39 is, right, let's see how I can help other people go on that journey for themselves and develop and grow. And that's where I'm at now. I'm really fortunate that I've got, I'm working in a coaching staff that all have the same mindset. How can we help players get better? How can we help players develop? A manager that is hell-bent on improving everybody every day, his coaches as well as his players. So I've actually fallen on my feet as well and landed in the right space. So yeah, I feel really lucky with that.
Yeah, looking at on I'm really fascinated by this, because when you look at your journey on paper, it looks like, oh, it's a goalkeeper who's obviously been in the detailed minutiae of goalkeeping work, and looks across the training pitch and sees other areas don't do any near the same work. So we've got to improve at that. Is there any part of you that thought there was an opportunity that there should be more specialisation?
It's a really good question, and the thought process is sound. It probably didn't evolve like that though. In reality, is I wanted to be a manager. Kieran knew that, and Kieran brought me onto his staff, and Kieran decided he wanted me as his forward coach. That's the real reality of it. That's the bones of it. There's a little bit more to it than that. I'm being a bit crass with that, but yeah, look, I wanted to coach, and Kieran understood that. Kieran brought me onto his staff. Kieran was probably the one who had the foresight to say, Lee, I think your skill set would really suit the work here with our attacking players, and that's where it started. It really is that simple. Of course, like from my perspective, I've definitely used some of the training mentality or habits or ideas that I've developed through my playing career, and I've definitely brought them through into my coaching for sure. But I've also been really open to other ideas. I'm really open to other strategies of coaching and developing, and that is also really exciting for me as well. But I would also say that throughout my playing career, I was really fortunate that I wasn't surrounded by drab coaching or coaches who weren't working in the detail or the minutiae, as you call it. You know, the likes of Eddie Howe, when I think back to the work he would do on the training ground, Steve McLaren, Jose, Kieran, Michael Carrick, the list is long in terms of coaches that were pushing the envelope, were really wanting to improve players, were really obsessed with the detail of how to go about doing that. That's the stuff that was really getting me excited, and the stuff that I was really watching adamant. So there were times when I was playing at United and I would be doing my work over here, but having a keen eye on what was going over there, not because I would think, oh, I think they could do with some of this, but actually because I want to be open to what's going on over there, and this is great, and I love this. This is my day to day. This is my bread and butter. But actually, what's going on over there, I find really exciting, and I would often be one eye on what's happening with Kieran's sessions and with Michael Carrick's sessions, or Jose's sessions, or Ralph's sessions, and that stuff was really exciting for me. So yeah, look, I've been fortunate with that as well in terms of the coaches that I've had around me, whether they be excellent goalkeeper coaches with superb detail, or excellent first team coaches or managers with superb detail, that have really got the juices flowing in terms of what's possible in terms of development and coaching and improving players.
I'm guessing at that level, I'm a United fan, so obviously like the culture that you hear about from outside, about the work that a Ronaldo would put in, or the work that a Cantona would put in. And again, sometimes you get a bit of an idealistic view when you zoom out, but I would say that at that level, there's got to be a real deliberate approach to individual development from players.
100%.
What does that look like without the coach driving it?
Well, the absolute top players that you're describing there, so if I use Bruno for an example, Bruno Fernandes would spend an incredible amount of time working on his game. So that was right through from the moment he walked into the building and his preparation leading into training in the gym, and all the rest of the bits that got him in the right position to train really well, to the work that he would do on the training ground, and how dedicated he was to that work, how much intensity he would put into that work every single day, to then when training finishes, that's his time then. So training's finished now, and that's when training starts for him. And whether it's free kicks, whether it's finishing practices, whatever was available or whatever it was that he was wanting to work on, he would be putting the time and the effort in. He wasn't the only one, using Bruno as an example, because he's a real top example of it, for a young player coming through, certainly, of what was needed to be in terms of habits, discipline, attitude to extra work, to really honing and like crafting and shaping his skills and his individual technical abilities. Like, there was no stone left unturned. So come the weekend, when a free kick was 25 yards out, whenever he scored a free kick or whenever he hit one in from 25 yards, I would always feel like a sense of, I've helped him along the way to that, because I've spent half an hour in the goal getting peppered by him. And he's also the type of guy, Bruno, that would let you share that with him as well, in terms of he would appreciate the work that you would do with him if you stayed out for an hour finishing practice, or for free kicks behind the wall while he's putting them in the top corner 9 out of 10 times. So yeah, from my perspective, that was great. But I was very often watching it not just from a position of, I'm in the goal here and I'm working and, you know, I'm doing everything I can to make sure I'm having a good session and he's having a, you know, not so good session. I'm also watching it from a perspective of, this is fantastic. Like, whether it was Cristiano, Eddie Cavani, whether it was Bruno, and the list is long, but you're talking about individuals that really understood what it was they needed to do to be at their maximum, and to eke everything they could out of themselves. And that was just top to watch. So great for me then as a coach now to be able to use those as shining examples of, I've seen it, I've got a taste of, and I've been around, and I've got a little smell of, if you want to win a World Cup, lads, you need to act and behave like Juan Mata does. And you need to, like, I've seen how he conducts himself. I've seen how he trains. I've seen the enthusiasm. I've seen the glint in his eye every time he dinks me in training, and what that means to him and how important that is, regardless of whether he's playing at the weekend or whether he's not. And I've seen that from Paul Pogba and and the list goes on. And that's exciting for me to get a sense of that, because I feel like I can pocket some of that and take that with me and go, I've got an idea now of what that looks like and what that feels like and what the absolute cream of the crop are doing to be at that level. So when you see that level on Tuesday night in the Champions League on the TV, I'm like, yeah, I've seen what goes into that. So that's really nice for me as a coach to be able to have those experiences and draw on those and reflect on those from time to time as well.
Oh, that's quality. We had a chat there when you were making the tea about the culture here as well being a priority on player development. Yeah. And I think, again, going more of a global view of coaching, there's more awareness now where we've got to want to give players ownership. But I think it's a real challenge for coaches is how do you actually get them engaged in that? How do you get them committed to that there? What's the secret behind it?
Well, I consider myself really lucky that I think I'm working with one of the absolute leaders in that. And I think, and I don't just say that flippantly, if you look at the work that's gone on at Ipswich over the last 3 years, and if you look at the record in terms of bringing players from here to here, and by the point they exit, whether that's a transfer or they leave, however that happens, how we move the dial, how we help them get better. And as I say, I think the manager here, I think Kieran really prioritises that. He makes that really clear to the players on their way in the door, really, really clear. And I've been fortunate to be in some of those meetings with players in terms of, we want to have you here. These are the conditions that we'd like to have you here, on, and those conditions are usually centred around we're going to really push you to be better. We're really going to push you to develop, and these are the areas that we think you can develop in. This is how we're going to do it, but that's going to need a real intent from you as well. That doesn't just happen by us pushing you all the way. This is not a one-way thing. This is a joint venture. And as I say, I think Kieran it's one of his top skills. We've seen it again this year with the young players, and no doubt many of the players across the course of this season will benefit from the experiences they've had, and certainly we'll see that in all different shapes and forms across the next 12 months and how that plays out. But I think absolutely every single player here this year will be able to say, yeah, I've had a real opportunity to learn, I've had a real opportunity to be better and develop every day. And that's the goal. And the gaffer makes no apologies for that. And, we as a coaching staff, and I love working in that environment, and I think it's really important. But as you talked about, it's one of the keys to it is for the players to be really aligned with it as well and on board with it. But quite quickly, when you're in this group and when you're in this building, you discover that that's the way. And there isn't really any other way to behave, I don't think, when you're in this environment. So it's been an important part of our story and our journey over the last 2 or 3 years. And as I say, the players that we've had come in, and even the ones that have left and we're still in contact with now, they really are the evidence of that work and of all that stuff that's gone on, I'd say, over the last couple of years, certainly on the training ground for sure. Brilliant.
Always be careful and approach this topic. Data, we're 10 years probably into the role that it's having, but a lot again, the impact of data seems to be pre-match scout, post-game prep, game reviews, staying on individual development. And something that I read in one of your interviews about shot selection, and I jumped up with that there because I thought there seems to be still a little bit of a gap between the data and getting the player engaged in data. Where does that data sit for working with the player on a daily basis during the week?
It's an interesting question, and definitely a valid one and worth exploring, because I think to really be able to, I think in the way that you're describing, to be able to have the sort of impact that you perhaps could have, it would take an awful lot of really narrow, really niche work from a data perspective. And of course, externally, there's people that can conduct that. I think from a coach's perspective, to be able to research, understand, or spend the time to dig and find that data in a way that's going to be helpful, I'm not sure it'd be the greatest use of time. So to try and use an example, if I was to try and think about the position of shots and whether shots were taking 1 bounce or 2 bounce before they hit the back of the net, or to get into a real finite detail about a shot selection or a shot position, to find that data, to understand, to make that data then relevant for a particular player in a particular instance or a particular context, would be really difficult to make it all fit and to all work without spending a ridiculous amount of time that could maybe be spent better working with a player in a different area or in a different mode, i.e. on the grass or in some other way. So as you're right in that data primarily is used across football clubs in the ways you described. So set piece analysis, overarching overview sort of stats that would frame or give players an idea of key traits or tendencies or habits, rather than real fine niche ideas or situations that can be used in an actionable way as you described. And I think there is space for it. It's whether or not anyone has the foresight or the capabilities right now to do that in such a way that it can be used quickly and readily for coaches. I'm not sure if it exists. Yeah, it's not an easy one. Yeah. It's not an easy one, because you have to think about the ways the way you work with players day to day and the time you have with players and how that's going to impact the work that you're going to do on the grass. So we have, and we were talking about it earlier, we have a buggy that we use. We have the cart that has the screen on the back, and it's such it's an excellent tool that we use, and I've used, and in fact all of the departments use. So the midfielders, the defenders, the forwards, the goalkeepers, the manager uses it every single day. So we use that buggy with the screen to show. It can be anything. It can be the set play coach can be talking to the players going on to practice the set plays. It can be the manager to quickly show a couple of opposition clips before we head into some pattern work. It can be it could be myself in an instance showing a goalkeeper and some habits and tendencies, or it could be a backline, which we've done recently. It could be a really extreme backline, and lads, this is a practice we're going into. This is why. Here's the backline. Here's 2 or 3 really key instances. Have a look. That should give you a nice frame to then go and step into this work. So you can impact the players really quickly with a change in mindset or a picture in their mind, and that's a great way of prepping players into their work. Doing that with data, or doing that in such a way sometimes or often, is great for the coaches to have that knowledge or understanding, not necessarily so great for a player to have to be bombarded with it or flooded with it. So it's quite nice if you, I always quite enjoyed it as a player, if there was some real solid foundations to what the coach was saying. So if a coach was telling me, Lee, I'd like you to do X, and the reason why I'd like you to do X, and the right reason why we're practicing X today is because opposition have this tendency, and this is the data that supports that. And it can just be as quick as that, and it can be a sentence that is backed with that data that you have, and you may have spent 2 days understanding that data, but it might just be that one statement that gets that data across to that player. So there's that, you have to weigh up all of the time. How much time or effort does this absorbing or understanding this data to the impact that it's going to have on the player? It's never really that clear, and it's never simple either. But we certainly use data here. We use it across all of the departments, but really targeted. And I think that's the key thing to all of it. It's the same with anything really. Being really targeted. How much do the players need to see, to feel? When do they need it? How important is it going to be? And being mindful that it's delivered in the right way, which of course is another important aspect of it.
The piece you talked about say Cavani and Ronaldo, and I think again I'm asking this because I do think there's a generalisation with positional specific work and specialisation work that, okay, you work with the forwards and you're a goalkeeper, so there's ball striking, so you go out and work on that there. But what I'm hearing is that they might strike the ball 2 different ways, and the context of their finishing might be different from different angles. Yeah. So you don't go down a rabbit hole of, at this level, they're elite players. You're trying to influence a little bit more in the decision or the preparation or the anticipation than you are in terms of keep your body over the ball and keep your, Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think you're right in that, especially when you're around really top operators, and I'm really fortunate across the 3 years I've been coaching. I've coached across 3 different divisions, and working the Premier League this year has been hugely massive opportunity, wonderful opportunity, and great challenge for all of us here at the club. But loved every single minute. But getting the opportunity to work with these are Premier League players now, so we haven't got to spoon feed them everything. They're elite by sheer way of the numbers. There's not many people that get the opportunity to play in the Premier League. So these guys are, you're in the top 20 football clubs in the world. If you consider the Premier League to be the top league in the world, that is. Well, which manager was describing it as they're not sure recently? There was a manager saying he wasn't sure. Was it Enrique? He was, I think so. Yeah, in the commentary before the game the other night, he was saying he's not so sure whether the Premier League is the best. Anyway, I digress.
He won't be listening to this anyway.
No, I'm not sure he will. Especially once he sees my name in the headlines. Gary Kearney, he may be, but Lee Grant, not so sure. He's probably skipping this one. I forget where we were now.
This is actually a good point. You're saying there to get to that level when you're at the level of elite Premier League.
Yeah. So look, I'm not out there every day, and perhaps it's worth me clarifying as well my role. Look, yes, my role is I'm working with the forwards every day, but if you turned up on any particular day, you absolutely wouldn't be able to tell whether I was the forwards coach, a defenders coach, because we're all assistant coaches here. So we have our manager, and then we have our assistant coaches, and the hierarchy is nice and flat. So it's a wonderful environment. It could be me running a rondo or a possession. It could be the manager. It could be Martin Pert, Charlie Turnbull, Shawnee Aluko, Mark Hudson. We've got a hugely experienced coaching team, and yes, when it comes to working with the strikers or the 10s or the right wingers, it will predominantly fall on the forwards coach, myself, and like the same for Charlie Turnbull when he's working with the midfielders, and Martin Pert with the defenders. But it's not a really narrow job for me. It's a first team coach, as most people would imagine it to be. But yeah, look, working with these elite players, I don't have to tell them how to swing their right leg to strike the football. They understand the basics of that, fortunately, and most of them are very good at it. What you are helping them with is having a really clear plan with what they're doing, and you're perhaps giving them a poke on the speed of execution or the thought process going into that, or the detail of that finish. Perhaps that could have been executed with a bit more clarity. I think that's one of the things that got me thinking actually before our conversation. When you gave me a couple of prompts, I was thinking one of your questions that you sent across. You'd asked about one of the key differences at this level, and I think really for me that the thing that I've noticed when I think back to my time as a player and now working at this level as a coach, it really is speed. I'm not just talking about speed in terms of how players cover the grass, running from point A to point B. What I've noticed this year in particular, and again when I reflected upon my own time as a player, it's speed of thought, it's speed of execution, and it's the speed to be able to select the right action in the right moment. It's the speed to be able to find the space with very little room to be able to generate enough power to good backlift to be able to go bang and hit and strike the ball into the corner cleanly. So it's speed across all of those different modes that really does separate, I believe, the ones who are operating at the top to the ones who are not quite able to find it at this level. And I think alongside speed, it has to go with clarity. So it's one thing I've been sort of ramming home a little bit this year is being really clear on what we're trying to achieve in any particular moment. So if we're here and we're on our non-dominant side and the ball is travelling in this direction across our body, what are we thinking and what's our plan? Is it a wild swing, or do we have a plan going into this? And if we haven't got a plan, maybe we should think about having a plan in these sorts of scenarios. And probably another word for having a plan is ruthlessness. And like in the top players, it just looks like they're being really ruthless, but it's not. I believe it's clarity, and they've thought about this before. They've thought about this moment. They've practiced this moment, and they understand that in this sort of scenario, on this angle, with limited slice of the goal to look at, I know that I want to be going across the goalkeeper here, and I know that that gives me a really high value chance to score. And if it doesn't, it also gives me a great opportunity to generate a rebound for somebody else. So those are the sorts of things across this year that I've been thinking about more and more, and those are the sorts of conversations I've been having with the players. I think they've started to bear some fruit as well in terms of, yeah, okay, I understand now, I'm into this position, and I know that this kind of finish, and of course, I may have the intent to go really low and hard into this corner, and it may end up going mid-height in this side of the goal. But having a plan, having an idea of the right type of finish in this particular moment, in this particular context, I think is what separates the ones that are scoring 10 and 20 and 30 goals in a league season, the ones that are struggling and aren't able to find the net on as many occasions. And I love getting into the detail of that, and I love trying to understand that. And more and more and more as I'm watching top players do it every day now in training, and again, as I reflect on the top players that I've worked with, those are the bits that are really sort of coming to the fore for me.
I saw one this morning with he does it 100 times a season. Van Dijk getting the ball from a throw in and hitting Salah. Yes. And as I was thinking about that's the speed of execution that you just referenced. Yeah. We don't talk about that at all. Yeah. But it's got to be outrageous when you're watching that every week.
Yeah, it's a real treat actually, and so you can prep for Liverpool. We're going to the prep against Liverpool, and you'll watch that. And you'll see certain tendencies and habits, and you'll think, okay, how do we go about stopping and affecting this, or preventing this? There are some things that are happening with certain types of players that are really, really difficult to stop happening. You think back to Arjen Robben cutting in on his left foot, or a better reference now would be Lamine Yamal coming in onto his left side and delivering an in-swinging cross, or finding the far post as he did recently. You're like, I understand this is going to happen, but this is going to be nigh on impossible to stop, because Arjen Robben is operating in a different moment to the defender, regardless of the fact that defender has an idea that that's going to happen. The speed of execution and thought and the clarity of the process. And by the way, if you do overcover that, I'm going to go down this side anyway. Those things are already happening. And the same with Virgil when he's receiving the ball and he's looking, he knows how and what he wants to execute. And he has a way of doing that every single time, regardless of that press coming, and he'll have a way of finding a way to execute. And that is where if you can get to that in a finishing position, in a goal-scoring position, you're in a really good place. And the best strikers, they're doing that by practicing habitually, that they are with repetition, and they don't stray from it either. So they don't get bored of hitting the same finish 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times on the spin. They don't get bored of a ball coming in at the near post and making the ground up to finish off their front foot rather than allowing the ball to come across and finish here. It's like, if I can take it a yard quicker and finish off my front foot and give the defender half a yard less chance to prevent that from going in the net, I'm going to do that. And those are the bits that excite me actually, boringly enough for other people, but for me, I find that really exciting.
I think a lot of coaches are listening going, that's the detail, people. Sometimes you get caught up in shapes, but it's kind of like, it's coaching, but it's also an appreciation, isn't it, of technique at a outrageous level.
Yeah, and I think so. I think there has to be, when you're working with it, so it's all depending on what context you're in that moment. So you're not having those conversations with players on the training ground when you're working with the front four or front five, and the work is pattern-based, or the work is really geared to how we're going to affect the opposition, and it may be a front half unit that I'm delivering, and it may be two midfielders, the left back, the right winger, the 2 10s, the striker, and perhaps in those moments, the conversations and the delivery in the session doesn't centre around everybody stop and stand still while I just talk to this player about, this minute detail. Of course not, but there's always a place for it within the right context, within the work that we're doing, and certainly with the way we work and the opportunity our players have to do extra work post-training. So work in smaller groups, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, the 2 10s here, the right wingers, the 2 strikers, they have those opportunities every day available to them. So we are very often in those conversations, which is, it's exciting that for a coach to have the opportunity to deliver both sides of the coin, which is great.
I hate asking this question, but I'm going to ask it. people have, Rooney's talked about the science, and obviously like you can see it, especially in the US today, with so much GPS, but not necessarily maybe football specialised people working with it. You get the laptop and the GPS numbers and the nudge from, here, listen, get them in quick. So how, with the crazy intense game schedule of a Premier League and then the fixture list coming thick and fast, how do you manage the development spaces, the times and those unit work?
It's an important question, and we're really fortunate that we have excellent people behind the scenes from a performance team perspective who understand the demands of the game, but also understand the demands psychologically, mentally. So, for example, when I played, to use myself as a reference, I would have to tick certain boxes during the week. And I'm certain any ex-pro listening is, yeah, that was me as well. I had to have had X ticked, Y ticked. Otherwise, I would go into the game feeling underprepared. Most players are like that and they're built like that. Of course, there has to be a balance of this particular player on this particular day may be at risk if he decides that he still has a few boxes to tick, but he's in a place where his body maybe doesn't need that extra work. We're always mindful of that, and we always work with the players on that. There's always a conversation. And I think most of the players now are smart enough to realise and understand where they're at. Part of the work we do with the players here is to help educate them to understand where they're at from a physical perspective as well. So if it is match day +1, it's probably not the right day to be out for an hour striking balls, high impact, explosive work. It's not happening. Common sense, of course, the day after a game, but you want to continue to educate players as to perhaps today let's think about bringing the load from here to here, or perhaps yesterday we had a decent volume of shots from this sort of range. Perhaps today the work we do centres around work from maybe a closer distance, or perhaps we're attacking crosses today where we're not actually getting any explosive volume on the leg and we're still getting some really good work that's going to be really applicable for the weekend. And there's loads of ways to do that where the players don't even understand that that's happening in the background. We have a lot of conversations before we head out to the grass every day to make sure that we are really, really across all of that. So helpful that our work from a performance team and technical team is integrated really well here. So we have Matt Allen, who is a key component of that. He will give you a nudge, but it's not a nudge to say, no. It's a nudge to say, let's think about this. How do we work with this? When you're doing this, maybe think about this. And actually, for me, that's great. That's great. Because then you almost challenge then as a coach to go, okay, I know this player and I know him really well. He wants to shoot and blast balls every single day. Okay, right, so how do I work around that today? Because actually, I know that today's not a good day for that. So let me develop, or let me think about something that's going to have him engaged, is going to work with the one or two players socially that are going to want to come and do that work along with him, and is going to be really relevant for the weekend. And then maybe it might just be then me spending 10, 15, 20 minutes watching the opposition to go, okay, here's something that's going to be important for the weekend, and it's not going to impact him physically. So they're good challenges to have as a coach, and I think more so than it being something you have to rub up against. Here in particular, we use it as something to guide our work and to understand, just to inform. And I think it's important to make sure that we're doing the right things by the players. But as I say, here the players have that opportunity every single day to push, develop, get better, and do it in the right way.
Soccer parent.
Yes.
Two words. All the coaches will start having nervous reactions out there. You've done it. Are you doing it?
Doing it, yeah. Certainly haven't done it because that would imply that my youngster's cracked it, which he most.
Well, he's got to a decent level. I mean, how have you managed those treacherous waters?
Do you know what? I really enjoy it. That's the first thing to say. I'm not sure all parents do, so maybe it's easier for me to enjoy it because I have an understanding of what's going on. So I've seen it from all sides. So I can be a little bit more relaxed. I do notice more often than not that parents do get really uptight and tense about everything that's going on with their son or their daughter who's playing and want to be able to have huge impact on everything. I have to say that I'm really lucky that I've got a son who's really mature and level in his personality anyway. But I think from my perspective, I've tried to. The biggest thing I could say, and I don't know whether it's a help or not, but for me, the biggest thing I've done is try to give him the room to have his own journey and be his own man, be his own player. He's a goalkeeper as well, so it's of particular interest to me. So I have to be particularly careful not to impact him in a way that is like, well, I did it like this, so it's not what's right for me is not necessarily going to be right for him. Probably more so when he was younger. I had to remind myself of that often. Less so now. He's a man and he can tell me himself. So he can say, "No, you're okay, Dad." But no, we have a really good relationship. He's really open to anything that, any info or feedback that I want to give him. And I think he's open to it simply because he knows that I don't bombard him with it. So if I was on his case all the time, if I was dragging him in the cup, right, that was not good enough, sit down here, we need to go through that, then I'm not so sure the relationship would be as good or he would be as willing to listen when I do have, I do have something to say. And occasionally I do, because I feel like I can be of help to him. But that would be my biggest piece of advice. Give them the room to, have their own journey and enjoy their own journey. It's not always easy though, because lots of parents have a lot of, time and money and effort invested in their kids' journeys. But more often than not, I've seen that overbearing or that weight of expectation and that pressure not have a positive impact. So, yeah, really and truly, give them the space and the room to enjoy it, and I'm sure it will go the right way. That's how I've sort of found it anyway.
Brilliant. It's a hallmark of American sports is the controlling parent and the overbearing parent. But I talked to someone yesterday and they said the British culture it's gone and drastically increased over the last 5 years. Yeah. Have you seen that as well when you're at the game?
I have, yeah, unfortunately. So, yeah, you see it so often. So even if I think back to when my son was 10, 11, 12, I would have to go and stand on my own and just find myself off in a corner flag and just watch the game there, because parents were just, would at times it would be too much, too full on. Kids constantly looking at mum and dad to see, am I doing the right thing? Have I upset you? Are you proud of me? It's like, it's too much. Almost keep your face neutral, be happy, make sure they're enjoying it. Don't load them up with pressure in the car on the way there. Don't make them fear getting in the car on the way back, because I've seen that. I've seen all the repercussions of that. And yeah, I do feel as though the trajectory it's heading on, and perhaps it's as a result of what's at stake at times for parents. They see what is on offer. For those lucky few that make it to the very, very top, and that can be quite an alluring thing to have, dangled out in front of you. So it's not easy. It's not easy to control those sorts of emotions. But honestly, to be able to enjoy it along with your child, there's no better feeling. So I went to watch my son last night. Had a 5-hour journey to watch him play.
Where at?
He's at Man City. Yeah. He's on loan at Buxton. It's his first year playing men's football. I thought it was really important for him, and he felt the same, that to go rather than playing another year in Man City's under 21s, which is a wonderful place to play your football, but also to prove to the wider world that you're ready to go and play in the EFL or wherever next year. I think it was important for him to play men's football. He's done that this year with Buxton, gave him a great opportunity. He's played 40 odd games. They had a playoff final against Chester last night. Sorry, semi-final. And unfortunately they lost in extra time. Yeah, which is a shame. But he played really well, and I think it capped off a really solid season for him. So exciting for him to move into next season now with hopefully the opportunity to go and play his trade somewhere in the EFL, whether it's League One, League Two, we'll see. Never know, maybe higher. I'm putting a ceiling on it, I don't know, but we'll see where it ends up.
Brilliant. Last one, I always finish it up with like an advice question, but I'm going to try and get 2 in for one here. Okay. The piece of, again, that I read, long days, 6:30 odd, 6 a.m. start, 7 p.m. finish, 5 hour on the road up to see your boy play. People think it is all glamorous and watching Virgil strike balls. That's a great, I want to do that as well across a pitch, but it's a hard gig. How do you sustain it? How do you advise people to kind of prepare for that part of it when they're having the goals?
Yeah, really important point, I suppose, to think about, because heading into the world of coaching and football in general, whether you work in analysis, coaching, anything around the professional game, it's full on, but you've got to, if you have the enthusiasm and the love for it, that's going to take you, 2/3 of the way. Retaining that energy is important, so doing the right things to make sure you're in a position to do that. So looking after yourself physically is important. Having good support at home is key. I'm really lucky. I've got a wife who is incredibly supportive of me continuing to, head down the journey towards, Lee Grant, the manager, which hopefully isn't too far away. So she's incredibly supportive of that, which gives me great strength to continue to do the job I'm doing. She's done the hard yards as well in League One and the Championship for us over the last couple of years. So I'm really lucky with that and have incredible support. Her support, I have to say, has moved slightly across towards my son. I'm a lot less important than I used to be. And certainly my son's career is probably taking pride of place at the moment, but that's fine. I'm okay with that. Having that support has been really critical, really crucial for me. And that really helps me to maintain my energy. And I think one of the other factors that's been important for me is the group I'm working in. So I work in, obviously you alluded it to there, we work long hours, and I've got to be really clear on this. So there's no arm twisting to keep people in the office from 6:30 a.m. till 6:30, 7 o'clock p.m. And also, to be really clear, it's not a badge of honour. I don't say that we work 12-hour shifts to boast about it. We do the work that we feel that's needed to be done to be prepared and to have the team prepared for the weekend. The manager sets a really high bar in terms of his work rate, and I believe that's the way to work. And we are, as a staff, aligned with how we work and how we conduct ourselves. I think, and I certainly would have done as a player, I think our players enjoy the fact that they are really well prepared and they have a staff that understand all of the detail and can give them the answers to the questions they need. And certainly, as I say, from our manager, he really sets a high bar with that. And I believe for us as coaches, it's important for us to match his energy, his enthusiasm, his love and intensity for the game. So that's what we do. If I wanted to leave for the school run at 3 o'clock, there's nobody going to bar me from leaving the training ground. That's absolutely okay. And of course we do that. We have lives. We're human beings as well. We all, we all make sure that we are fulfilling our duties as fathers and sons and husbands and et cetera, et cetera. So that's important to note. But in terms of the work that we do here and the way we apply ourselves, absolutely, we give everything to the job. And yeah, that means more often than not, we are working long days. And I enjoy being in the office nice and early. I get in at 6:30 most days. I've never beat the manager in. The manager, no matter what time I get in, I try some days, I'll try and push it and be in at 6:15, 6:10. I still don't beat him. So I've never asked him because I don't want to know the answer in terms of what time he gets here and what time he has the laptop open. And that's the way we work. So yeah, it's an intense atmosphere in terms of we're all aligned with it, we're all pushing, we're all striving, and I think that's the right way to work. It might not be for everybody. And other coaching groups may work slightly differently. And again, to be clear, it's not every single day where we're locked in the office huddled a lot of the time. And it's also not head stuffed in the laptop from 6:30 a.m. till 6:30 p.m. It's also the manager might, drift into our office and it could be a conversation on what PSG and Arsenal are doing for an hour. It could be from 4 p.m. till 6 p.m. We're sat as a coaching group reflecting on the week before or the week ahead, or what ex-player might need, or pre-season. And these things happen naturally, and I love that we have that sort of relationship across the offices, and we're actually really lucky, and I'll show you on the way out. We have our analysis office, our coaching office, and our manager's office all in a row. And yeah, we're talking like a couple of meters apart in terms of the doors. So the doors are always open, and actually the players' change room is like the next door along. So you've just got this nice flow of we're all here, the doors are all open, there's lots of interchange and conversation, and we're in with the analysts, and the analysts are in with us, and the manager's in, and and it's really nice. And I think that helps to create a really nice environment of you want to be here. So as a coach, you want to be here, and you want to understand what's happening with the manager and with the analysts and with the players, and it's all working quite nicely. So yeah, it's intense, but I think it's the right way to work, and helps us to prepare and helps us to be ready for games, and gives us a great opportunity going forward.
Brilliant. Great way to finish. Lee, thank you so much. That was amazing.
No,
Loved
great.
it.
Loved it.
Fast.
Appreciate it.
First class.